Thanks for coming along to our Tracking Soil Health with Nicole Masters webinar. This is our second webinar with Nicole in this format with Soilmentor. My name's Courtney Young. I'm the Peer Learning Manager at Soils for Life. I'm also a farmer in Victoria. Before we jump in, just some housekeeping things. As always, please stay on mute. Ask questions in the chat as they arise, and we'll get to your questions at the end. And please note that this webinar is being recorded and we will share with everyone after the event. Our schedule for today is jam-packed. We have 3 farmers that Nicole, who I will introduce in a minute, will be coaching using the Soilmentor app. So each farmer will have 20 minutes to go through their farm with Nicole, and then we'll have a group Q&A at the end for 20-25 minutes. So we will be sticking to time, and I will be strict on that front. We've got a pretty diverse panel in terms of enterprises, but geographically we are mostly in Victoria, so apologies for how that worked out, but it'll still be really interesting to have a look at these 3 different farms. We've got Donna Winter-Irving, who's a grazier from Nagambie. We've got James Manning, who is from Seymour. He's a thoroughbred horse stud manager. And we've got Russell Ford from Barooga in New South Wales, who's a grain grower. A little bit about Soils for Life before we kick off. Our mission is to support Australian farmers to regenerate soils for resilient businesses, landscapes, and communities. One way we do that is through our Cropping Resilience Project, which is a future drought fund project, which is all about supporting Australian croppers who are looking to build soil health and drought resilience. One of the outputs from this project have been a series of practice guides, so I encourage you to check these out. These are all different resources on different practices that can help you to build more resilience in your farm system. And we'll share the link for those in the chat. In this Cropping Resilience project, we've also been trialing the Soilmentor app, which we'll be using today. It's been really fun to work with a bunch of different grain growers mostly to see how they're using the app to record soil tests, daily observations and photos out in the paddock. It also allows you to benchmark your results and build knowledge in your kind of region or your biome as they call it. One of the most exciting things I think about this Soilmentor app is the regen indicators, which Nicole played a big part in pulling these together. So these are different indicators that you can be looking at, different soil tests you can be using to assess your soil health and understand where your soil is at. And Nicole has provided some really great information and guidance on the website and in the app to help you understand what you're seeing when you do one of these tests. And these indicators you can do with or without the app as well, essentially. So I will introduce Nicole, who I'm sure you're all very familiar with. We're really grateful, Nicole, to have you on again for this Soilmentor webinar. We had such great feedback from the last webinar. Nicole Masters is an agroecologist, coach and author. And since 1999, she's had extensive practical experience in regenerative soil and land management alongside coaching and training the trainers. I hope you've all read her book, For the Love of Soil. And she's now doing some really great courses online and in person, one of which the Create program I just completed, and it was amazing. And please reach out if you want to talk about it. It's coming to Australia in September. So thank you again, Nicole. I will pull up Donna and Donna's Soilmentor, and we can get started. Sorry, one. 1 second. Okay. Donna, are you there to give us an introduction?
Yeah, hi. Okay, we're on. So, good morning to everybody from Tangerang Country. We are 120 k's north of Melbourne, and this is a fabulous opportunity to connect with you, Nicole. Thanks to Courtney and certainly Source for Life for this great opportunity to be involved with the Soilmentor. Just what I was looking for. So I'm a gardener turned farmer. I've now got a big 600 hectare garden. Together with my husband, Jim, we run a mixed grazing enterprise of lamb, mutton, wool, and some young sons. Have a small herd of cattle at times just to see whether they're interested in farming or not. And I wanted big poos and big dung beetles, lots of dung beetles. So currently we're running 640 ewes and 260 lambs. We normally have more than that, 800 ewes and 600 lambs. Sorry, 260 lambs, but usually 600. Our long-term average rainfall is about 500 mil, but we're currently running about 30% lower than that. We've had a really dry start to the year. Until about 7 weeks ago, we had 20 mils and then no follow-up. And then 2 weeks ago, we had about 39 mil, which has just been a game changer for us, and the land's sort of come to life. So that's where we're at. I guess I've had lots of questions, and reading Nicole's books and mitigating the risk of the next dry season or the next flood is probably one of our big things. We are EOV monitored through the Savory Institute, so our land is verified as a grading, but one of the big issues around we have is plant diversity. So we've got a range of soils. We've just done some fencing projects, which is fabulous because you get to dig 900 mil holes and see what's going on down below. And fencing, you're walking up and down and looking at your land all the time. So yeah, that's where we're at. Oh, I've got a background in horticulture. I don't think we ever got told about microbes. Permaculture, bit of landscape design, and then holistic management for nearly about 8 years ago. So we run our property on planned grazing. Yeah. So.
Well, thank you, Donna. We appreciate we call this ruffling through your underpant drawer. So I really appreciate you letting us do that publicly. It's kind of looking underneath the surface of what is it that's often hidden from the eye. So do you want to tell us a little bit context specific about this, where the sample is? And I'm thinking that soil that we've got right in the middle. What are we looking at? It's kind of the challenges, working well.
Yes, that's quite sandy. That's a paddock that has only got a recovery of about 1 day. There's cattle yards in there, so it often gets a lot of activity. So it doesn't get those recovery times, but it's got a lot of forbs, not a lot of grasses there at all. Whether it's got low calcium, I'm suspecting it's something. I did the slaking test on all our soils, and I was really surprised that actually held together. I thought it would just crumble in my hands, and it didn't. So it's really just lacking a lot of plant diversity. There's, it's probably been a little bit hammered, as some of our paddocks, we've been moving them because of the dry period every couple of days. But there's probably more bare ground there, but it's really good grasses. It's mainly forbs, which is obviously telling me it needs repairing.
Yeah. So I think visually, when we look at a soil like that, you can see how it's sort of broken off is often where you're going to find there's a limitation to air or water movement. I mean, you can see the roots are getting down past that, which, we do want to see that in a sandier soil. That is when we're going to see that. There is a little bit of soil sticking, not what we would term rhizo sheath strictly, but we will see this in some other pictures to take a look at. I want to see some mixing. Most of that color at the top, I would suspect, is that the moisture that you've just had?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Yeah. So sometimes when we want to take a good picture of, say, people might think, oh, I've got more soil carbon because it's darker, is to actually spray with a water bottle to like just spray that surface so we get that moisture a little bit more evenly, and then we can see, is there a color change as we go down through the profile? So that could be a little bit more organic matter. Yeah, these sandy soils, you've got I mean, anytime we're dealing with Australian soils, right, there's some of the oldest soils in the world. Did you have a profile picture of the soil that, like an area where you'd say the grasses are doing a lot better, where you have got a little bit more diversity in here?
As I said, it's probably a day, only been grazed, recovery's only a day. So whatever was pretty good, they took out. I think there may be a there should be a landscape, short-term monitoring one, for
Oh, that's good.
back.
Yes, thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah, there's
So those photos there, Courtney. So you can see that first one at the top left, you can see that really thick, like there's much more of a thick
that's a
mat,
different
which is
site, that one.
right.
That's
Yeah. So is this a better site? So the phalaris?
Well, that's the other side. That's where we've got complete opposite. We've got a lot of phalaris domination from paddocks that were probably pasture renovated about 15 years ago. So that's the other issue. That's really heavy clay. And we don't have much plant diversity in there. Good aggregates, but constipated, really heavy. So they're the two extremes probably on our property.
Yeah.
And yes, trying to get some air into that. Now, the things with us is we don't have a machine to do cover cropping. So we've got some limitations. So we've just got 100-litre firefighting a spray tank that I've been mixing some biologicals just with fermenting rice and some of those lab mixes to start with. So, whether we, we've got limitations. That's because we're basically grazing. So, it's how do we start? How do we get more air in there? Obviously, more plants is the key. I was pushing, we did a couple of areas where some cattle were just feeding hay. And I got my son to move the hay around at different points. And so I just stuck a probe in there. And, the probe went down really deeply. So that obviously showed me more organic matter, but it's just how do we do that? Or whether it is calcium. And I've heard you say about using lime because we don't have something, to put it out. That's, we need something already emulsified, I think I heard you say something about paint. What do
we probably in this we can't get to some of those, like how much and what kind of things, especially without the context, but we can certainly take a look at like that picture there, Courtney. So this is in the better paddock, the heavier. Yeah. So this is where you've been feeding some organic matter. Yeah. And so visually what I want to see is, are we seeing the incorporation of that organic material? Do we see it starting to turn basically into that living organic matter? So this is a really good thing for anyone that's bale grazing, or if you are in a cropping situation. Just dig a hole and take a look. Are we seeing that litter build up? And if we are, what kind of color is it? Like, do we see grays and blacks? Do we see white? Those signs can sort of tell you, one, that the quality of the plants that you're growing isn't it's not biological food. It's sort of telling us that we've got less nutrition in that. And what you'll find is, as we improve nutrition, that stubble, that organic material, the litter will be quite a golden color. The color will actually change. And then when it hits that soil surface, we see it break down really fast. So if you're trail grazing or concentrating animal impact, how quickly does this break down? Obviously, water is a magic factor for all of this, but also thinking about your calcium, thinking about sugars, and that's going to come from our bricks, thinking about phosphorus and nitrogen, they all have a role in that breakdown. So that's a good visual cue for us to look at. If you go back to the other images on the other slide, Courtney. And, decomposition, right? So if we see animal manures, they're going to reflect the quality of that pasture too. So often you'll see poor litter breakdown will actually correspond with the scores that you're going to give your dung. So how much roughage, how much packed up it is, how many dung beetles, the dung beetles, the higher the numbers, we're going to see the higher the quality. And we'll see lower dung beetle numbers when that forage quality is poor. You have some lovely tunnelers in here. I imagine you've got a diversity of different dung beetles.
Yeah,
Donna?
they're my friends. I look at them, I'm always exploring. Yeah, we do. We have little tiny ones that have got the browns, and then, the big tunnelers we've just noticed. And of course, the dry period, I'm sure we just don't have the earthworms. We've seen them at other times. Yeah, so that's sort of a concern that, then it's not turning over. That was just after a day, sort of.
Yeah, so it just shows what that they're there, they're just waiting for the conditions to come right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and these guys take a lot of material down through that profile, and we're thinking about building soil. These guys can really be major earth workers if we don't have earthworms.
So after a dry event like this, so
go back.
is this when you would put out some vermicast or something like that to activate things, sort of give it a boost straight away, or
Yeah, so timing's critical. So anytime the plant's active, then the biology is going to be active. So we're often thinking about timings, like it could be post recovery, could be post cutting for hay. It's all about your goals. Courtney, can you click on that soil? That's just the second row down, second picture in on the left. Yeah, that one. I want to see if we can see some of this mixing. See that's a rhizosheath on the left. So we want to see all of that soil sticking to it. And especially if we are in low calcium soils. Oh, that's beautiful. All right. As I want to see how dense does this root mass get? We talk about that 80% of your root mass. How deep is one of the measures that we're going to do on the Soilmentor app? I mean, the reason that we designed this is so during COVID, we couldn't get out in the field with people. And so being able to see images like this was just really invaluable. Obviously, as one image at one time, this is going to change through the season. It's going to change with moisture. It's going to change as you're improving your management. And so being able to just benchmark like this can be incredibly valuable.
Yeah.
Not seeing a lot of mixing in that from this, you haven't dug straight through, obviously, like a dung beetle or burrow or a earthworm burrow, but I want to see that mixing right through that profile, and that can be happening right at the start of the program. Like we can see that mixing happening within a couple of weeks if you fire that system up. And that's where I really think using animals as tools is key, Donna. So really thinking, what can I give to my animals that's actually going to make this more palatable for dung beetles and worms and biology and get this whole system sped up. Thanks, Courtney.
So what do you mean when you say what can I give to my animals?
Third picture on the left, that one. Sorry, Donna. The third picture down on the left.
When you say what can I give to my animals, what do you mean by that?
So go to the left, to the far left, Courtney. So prebiotics, probiotics, anything that's going to really stimulate the rumen or the gut.
Right.
I give my horses, that one. I give my horses humate. You could give them biochar. There are commercial products, but one of my clients, and I'm pretty sure we're about the same, but we need to get it validated. They measured 700 dung beetles in a cow pie. And that manure is just gone. Like my horse manure, if I don't put you know, a hume out, I can see the difference. Like it's gone within, you know, 2 days. The manure's just, so I want to see that. So what did you think this was?
I was unsure. I was wondering if it was mycorrhizal fungi, but I didn't know. Mycelium or I don't know. I was fascinated. It was
Yeah.
only
Well, you're
I
in
didn't
the
see. Sorry?
you're in the same camp, right, as most agronomists I find misidentify what this is. This is mealybug. So mycorrhizal fungi are invisible unless you're dealing with trees.
Mm.
No grafters have visible mycorrhizae to the naked eye. We can zoom in if we have those little mini microscopes. So what you're looking at here is, and it's not saprophytic fungi either, right? This is not a fungi that's breaking down organic material. It's actually the residue of a mealybug. And this is one of the creatures that they've been attributing to pasture dieback up in Queensland, and I see there is actually some in New South Wales. But we can see, and I'm pretty sure that there's a female just, oh, I can draw, can't I? Can I draw?
I only saw it in one sort of spot, so it wasn't through
Okay.
other areas. So that's
Oh,
a
that's
good,
cool.
right.
So I think those two little dots are the female, right? The males are invisible. But these guys are sapsuckers. It's great that you're only seeing this in one. The more stress that we see plants get,
Yeah.
then these are secondary, right? They're coming in to clean up something that's stressed, so they might have root damage. But I have seen soils in Australia and New Zealand that are white. One way you'll see it is you'll actually see pasture pull. So your cattle might be moving across the fields, and as they're grazing, they can actually pull roots out. If you see that, dig a hole, and what you might find is you've got these guys under the ground. They can be a major contributor for pasture losses, basically. So they could be eating a lot of pasture. So that's a great photo. Appreciate
It
you
was only
catching
in
that.
that one area, and I knew you'd be interested because because it was
Oh, it's
odd.
fun. Mhm. But I think to realize that pasture losses have been because of some kind of insect. Um, I think I'm not sure what the so army cutworm, for instance, if we had two army cutworms in a section of soil like this, is we could actually, they could be eating as much as 2,200 kilos of dry matter per hectare per year. So the amount of losses from insects is substantial, which is why we have that on our benchmarking. Courtney, do you want to pull up the benchmarking indicators, the regen indicators, please? Yeah. I love this dashboard, and what's cool about it is we can actually compare ourselves to others in the same biome, in the same soil type. So we can really get a sense of, you know, how well am I performing? Actually, this is pretty good for these types of soils and these kind of environments, you know. But I think the infiltration, so we're measuring that in millimeters per hour, which for some of you might be a little different. We often think about it, yeah, it might be in inches per hour. And so it's how much is actually being absorbed. So 250 mils in an hour, that's pretty good. Is that on your sandier soil?
No, that was actually on the more clayey one.
Okay. And so when you dug through that, do you see the water moving right through?
Yeah.
Excellent. So you couldn't even tell where that inch had gone, like it's gone right down, right?
No.
Yeah. Oh, that's perfect. So yeah, seeing it on some sites, so which is quite surprising. So the red infiltration is actually on your sandy soil.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Really interesting.
Oh, that
So I
one,
think
but
again,
that top one is 16 log. That's in the same paddocks as 254. That was just a different area, which, yeah, there was a variation in the soil and there was better plants. I just, yeah, there was a variation in the paddock, but yeah, the other ones are more sandier.
I love that you've gone and done that diagnostics though, because sometimes, yeah, you can look at a field and go, well, this area is performing better. What's going on? And it's like, well, water's actually going in. What happened here differently? You know, was it under a cow pie? Was it somewhere I did bale graze, or is it somewhere that we deferred grazing? You know, so really being able to figure out actually in this context, this management is really improving the system.
And some of we have put some of the natural sequence farming contours through, Stuart Andrews. So we are noticing, some rehydration happening there too out from the contours. So yeah.
That's awesome.
One more minute and then we should wrap up.
So yeah, this is a fabulous tool for me. Yeah, exactly where we're at. So yeah, so the animals, I think David Hardwick said to me years ago, Donna, just get your grazing right. So just you saying getting probiotics into our animals, just like our gut health, no doubt. We have used some Pat Colby's licks, but not consistently. Would that be helping? Well, that's serving a different purpose to the sheep.
It's really serving a different purpose. So I think in terms of this is more to, all right, I want a rumen or a gut that's functioning really well, and then how that passes on then to making that palatable for all of our creatures in the soil. We just see it as a real tool for speeding up, especially if you're not going to do anything else, if you don't have any other machinery, then absolutely grazing is your number one tool and the best place to start. It's just I work with a lot of people that are doing a great job with their grazing and they're still kind of got a drag. So it's start with your grazing every time if you are a grazier.
Can I just ask one more thing then? We are planning for the future. Is it, and we are looking at maybe an implement for cover cropping. So is that one of the real keys to really, plant diversity is a problem on our place that would absolutely speed things up, wouldn't it?
It absolutely could. We're thinking about how hostile is an environment right now to seeds, especially to perennial seeds, and how do we shift that? All right. So, sorry, Courtney, you move along.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Donna.
Thank you, Donna.
Thank you.
James, do you want to introduce yourself and I'll share your platform?
Yep, no problem. Thank you, everyone. Hello, everyone, and thank you to the team for having me on. So I'm a thoroughbred horse stud manager, which is probably a bit different to everybody else here today, but we're on 1,200 acres, not far from Donna, actually, just about an hour and a half's drive north of Melbourne, in between Seymour and the Gambie on the western side of the Goulburn River, and some beautiful country with some river flats, some undulating country away from the river, and a couple of different soil types. We manage thoroughbred racehorses or breed thoroughbred racehorses where we have stallions, broodmares, we foal down, grow out yearlings and a few spelling racehorses as well. And we also run a beef cattle herd, where up to 100 head at different times, depending on the horse numbers and the seasons. So obviously it has been an ordinary season here in Victoria. We are lucky enough to have a little bit of irrigation. We can irrigate about a third of the farm here. So and we're just transitioning. We are looking to do things better. We've got some serious issues with some of our soils, and just looking to transition and really looking forward to hearing Nicole's side of things and how we can do things different, how we can do things better, and particularly with the horses. I know Nicole's got the horse background, so looking forward to hearing that.
Thank you, James. Really appreciate you sharing this with us. So the images that we're looking at now, is this from irrigated or non-irrigated?
So the top left there, Northwood 4 is irrigated. So we've trialled, Grant Sims has been helping us develop a multi-species equine mix, and I couldn't find anything sort of commercially available. So Grant's been great in helping us trying to come up with something there. And this is from that picture there was from the southern end of the paddock, and there's a lot more cereal in there than there is brassica, but from the other side, it's there's a lot more brassica scattered through. Sorry, some of these pictures I only took this morning trying to get a landscape shot for you, but yeah, it's there's a lot more brassica through this end of the paddock, and you can see there's a little waterway that goes off to the left there that goes past this paddock. It sort of connects with the creek. And you can see the difference from the other side of the fence as well in the paddock over there.
Do you want me to focus on Northwood first and then move into Plum? All right.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Northwood
And
4.
we've kind of got a
Yeah, four corner, if you like, is the.
So let's all right, let's look at gorgeousness of that rhizome sheath. Yeah, on cereal.
So just probably a little bit more context. So we know we have low calcium magnesium here. So we have been, putting a bit of dolomite out over the last 2 seasons. And we've put a bit of work into this paddock. So it was cultivated. So there's some older pictures there where we had some severe J rooting last year. So we tried to direct drill a cover crop mix. And they're probably right down the bottom, Courtney. But yeah, we tried to direct drill a cover crop mix in here, and we didn't really go very well. Like it started off okay, and then realised we were struggling a bit, and probably identified that our biggest issue was lack of oxygen and compaction, I think, Nicole, maybe. And so we went through and deep ripped and cultivated this paddock and basically turned this crop in as a green manure crop.
Right. Awesome. Yeah, so digging up those roots it can be incredibly indicative of what's obviously happening beneath the ground. There was oh yeah, that bottom left one, I was really interested in looking at that. That kind of looks like, to me, and maybe I'm wrong, but it looks like the roots are kind of concentrated on that top inch, half an inch, and then you've got some that are actually able to go down. So that might be an old ripper or.
Yep. So this was actually taken after we put a rip line through. So we just went through with like a yeoman style ripper and ripped and then left it and let the cattle graze over the top of it. So you can see the plants have actually been chewed at. So I don't know whether some of those roots found space after we ripped. I didn't dig them up properly beforehand. So.
Yeah. Plants are going to chase the, path of least resistance. But also we get these buildups of different types of chemicals and hormones that can happen within these plates when we do get soil that's compacted. If you want to go back, Courtney, I'm not sure if there was an image. Have we got any compaction images? No, it all looks pretty friable.
Yeah, I
these
didn't.
rhizome sheaths. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't take any this because that was last year, so I didn't actually take any comparison shots back then, which I should have.
Yeah. No, that's all good. All right, well, let's look at the slaking test then. So tell us how you did your slaking.
So before I actually went and watched the Soilmentor how-to, I did the slaking in a just in a container in the field. But I went back and did it the way described in the helpline there. So I just basically got 3 to 4 small soil aggregates, just about in between sort of 1-3 mil. They might be a little bit bigger than 3 mil, and I submerged them with a sieve and into a bowl of water, and just kept the bowl white so you could see it how it progressed, and I thought they held together reasonably well, actually.
Yeah, it actually looks really good. I think, was there an image where you had like what was kind of left over? So
Yeah,
those of you that have higher clay, God, the goose and the dogs are going off, sorry, is how do these little aggregates hold together? And it's a pretty good indicator for biological activity. So you imagine microbes are releasing all sorts of exudates. You can think of it as like spit and vomit and poos and wheeze, just covering these surfaces, which make them really sticky, right? And you think of, fungi are releasing sugars that actually make these soils really sticky. And then what happens is if the water rushes into these little aggregates, these little crumbs, is if you have a lot of biological activity, then the soil, the air spaces stay open. Now, if you don't have a lot of biological activity, they just collapse. And so we'll see water becoming discolored. If you have a very high clay soil, then the soil might stick together, but if you leave it in water overnight, you'll see it's all dispersed, like it's kind of dissolved. So it's one thing to take a look at. Those of you in sodic soils, you might see these soils just disperse, just collapse. So it's a nice indicator for soil health, knowing that there might be some differences in high clay soil. So we included it in that index because it's such a powerful indicator. And also, can we look at the bricks, Courtney? Right, so you've taken, you've got a refractometer and you've taken a couple drips of sap and then looked through it. So what's this plant here?
So this one here was of some cereal oats, and it was interesting actually. I did a bricks earlier, as in a week or two earlier, and I was a bit disappointed. Whilst it looked good, the fat hen was actually brixing higher than everything else. And then we were due to put out a foliar spray, so we went out with some calcium and seen minerals, and also added some biology in, and we actually got a change to the bricks actually being, if not in line, above the fat hen, so which was pretty cool.
Did the fat hen go down?
From memory, yes, it did actually, yeah, because the fat hen was quite high to start with. I think it was up around 15. Yeah. And I think it's gone down to 9, and the others have come up a little bit. Yeah. They're not fantastic, but they've come up. Yeah.
Look, honestly, when we're on this journey, it's like, well, where are we currently? Who's winning the game? And right now, if the oats are 9 and the fat hen's 15, then fat hen's winning the game. And so we want to get interested in why. And if and what I find in most systems is the weeds are outperforming, they're capturing more sunlight energy, they're in healthier condition than the crops that we want. And so by you doing this before and after, and then doing a foliar, you can see that foliar is actually your land's responding to that, right? Your plants are responding to that. So I think that's a really good takeaway. Also, when you notice how sharp that line is, sharper on that fat hen, so that can be an indicator of dissolved solids. There's different materials in that sap. There could be calcium and phosphorus, for instance. So we want to see that line quite blurry. Fat hen can be an indicator for nitrates, but the fact that your oats was a blurry line and about 10. If we had nitrates in there, then your oats would be around 3, and it would be a really, really sharp line. Like I want it that blurry. Like I want it hard to even be able to read that's like 9.5.
Yeah.
But yeah, with oats, we're really aiming for 12. And I want to measure this early in the season, because with all of our annuals, as you get later through the season, then that plant actually starts sending sugars up to its seed head. So we might actually see elevated sugars in the leaves. That's actually a response to it's sending everything up because it's at the end of its life cycle, right? Whereas perennial, we want to see that bricks be, high, but they're sending their sugars down when they start to senesce. So that's a really great outcome.
Yeah, cool. And that was the peas. Yeah, I was quite excited to see the peas. We're sort of getting up there a little bit more. So yeah.
Yeah. And that's even so hard to read that I would tip this on its side, the refractometer, and to look through it, see that line get nice and sharp. But honestly, I mean, you can get refractometers for $30, and sure, they're not the best quality, but they work. To be able to give us quite a lot of insights. How are we going for time, Courtney? Do we want to look at legumes? Or
Yeah, or James, did you want to compare this paddock with Plume West, or what were you thinking?
Yeah, I was hoping to just talk to Nicole quickly about that one. But up to you whether you want to look at the legume or not. So
Sorry, my internet is slowing us down. Plume West, where are you?
Plume 1, yeah, Plume 1 West is the sample site, yeah.
And the context you gave me was that this is quite a similar soil type to the one that we were just looking at.
Yeah, correct. So it's literally the only thing that changes is there's a driveway between it, the main drive. It's same side of that same waterway that runs through. It's similar slope. Like everything is very, very similar. I tried to compare apples to apples where possible. The difference being is that this is pretty much a monocultured Phalaris paddock, and we have put some CalMag or some dolomite out on this paddock as well, and a little bit of biology, but just the difference in we haven't sown it, it hasn't been worked, and yeah, it's pretty much, well, I don't know how long it's been a monocultured Phalaris paddock, but certainly since I've been here, so I'd say forever, really, 10, 15, 12, 20 years, I don't know.
Uh, what I love about this comparison is just you can really see the power of diversity or interrupting a cycle. Is we can see those differences, like just to look at that root structure or how deep those roots are going, and see that the moisture that you've had is really just sitting in the surface, right?
So you spoke
Yeah.
about in the last webinar on this about salicylic acid and compaction, because obviously we've got some severe compaction layers, shallow and deep. Is that something that it could be a consideration for us?
Yeah, I mean that might be something if you're doing foliars to be able to put some of this in. I'm curious as to why you're putting dolomite or CalMag on, like you're putting both.
Yes. So
Is magnesium also low?
yes, correct. Yep. So
Okay.
more so up here on the undulating country rather than down on the river country, but yeah, we're low, and we've done that for 2 years in a row now. So we're due to retest and see where we sit with
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, the mention of salicylic acid, we talked about it last time in response to ethylene production when we have compacted soils, is we're seeing that salicylic acid helps plants overcome so that their roots can penetrate more deeply. Um, I'm I don't have a problem if someone did run some kind of machinery through here to open these soils up, but that has to be done with biology. So when you run the yeoman's plow, did you drip something down the back end?
Yeah, we didn't last year, but we've got some pretty handy blokes here that work on the farm. We've made our own little, basically a little tolling foot that we use now behind the deep ripper and the seeder. So that's made I think, a big difference in that other paddock. Yeah.
Can you send them to Montana, please?
Yeah.
Yeah, we put them up.
I'm sure they'd love the trip. Yeah.
Brilliant. Great.
We can
Yeah.
have a quick look at the regen dashboard
Yes.
if you want, and then we'll wrap up.
Yeah. So we're looking at Northwood 4. What's the other one that we were what was the last soil?
Plume 1 there. Yeah.
One. Oh, beautiful. All right. So seeing just that difference in terms of rooting depth, huge difference in infiltration. Now, you've been putting a lot of stuff in there. You've got plant roots. You ran a piece of machinery over. But what's kind of cool is, what does it take sometimes to just jumpstart these systems? Because you want to be able to catch every single mill of rain that arrives. We now end up in this sort of virtuous cycle of having a soil being able to repair, whereas when you're at 93 mils an hour, we really are seeing that slow down. And then, we end up with flooding or whatever can happen in an area because we can't hold on to that water. So yeah, good indicator. Bare earth wise, there wasn't really that much. Well, 7% to 9%, not that much difference in bare earth. So that's also including litter.
Correct. A lot of litter in that
Yeah.
plume one paddock, because we do mechanically take that down. The horses, it gets stalky and long, so we keep that short. So there's a lot of organic matter. Yeah.
Yeah, so I potentially be looking again, like how do I use the animals as tools, as horses as tools, and then making sure that we're not kind of seeing a buildup of litter, although we didn't see that in that photograph. But yeah, again, I want to see that litter breakdown. I know people come to New Zealand and they're like, oh, well, we need all this litter, and most places can't build it because your biology's firing, right?
Yeah, right.
So Sarah, yes, that the infiltration does take into consideration soil types. It absolutely is relevant. Well, you know what? No, saying that, you got to take your soil type into relevance, but actually the cutoff, which we do in inches, right? So anything longer than 12.5 minutes for an inch of water. So I'm not working in millimeters an hour, is the cutoff no matter what your soil type is, right? We've seen soils that are sand that don't infiltrate at all, and clay soils that infiltrate really fast. So that cutoff is because anything longer than that 12.5 minutes means that any water now is actually going to start evaporating. And it's an indicator that your water cycle's broken. Yeah. So compaction is less about the animal than more about your management. So, horses can actually create a friable soil if you're managing them well. Thank you, Sarah. Nice to see you. Yeah, so again, it could be around intensity or managing, like maybe when the soils are too wet. So really thinking about timing when it comes to compaction, but really compaction is what's happening with my mineral and my balances, what's happening with microbiology. Organic matter plays a big role in compaction. So the lower our organic matter, then the higher the risk of compaction. So yes, animals can create compaction, but they can also help reduce compaction, right?
Yeah.
Thanks, James. I appreciate
Thank
that.
you.
That was really cool. And
Yeah.
yeah, great to see you doing such a good job with regenerative horse management. We love it.
Thank you.
Thank you, James. Russell, do you want to introduce yourself and I'll bring up your account?
Sure. Yeah. So Russell Ford, I actually live in a little town called Jerilderie, southern New South Wales. I guess I classify myself as a farmer, a researcher, and an agro consultant. I do a bit of everything, which is lovely. I've focused for the Soilmentor app. I've got a small block down at Baruga. It's only 70 hectares, 3 paddocks, but I focused on that because I really want to make it work. I do share farm another couple of thousand hectares, and I manage probably another, I don't know, 4,000 or 5,000 hectares around the place. And it's a mixture of cropping, livestock, and probably my main research focus has been in rice over the last 30 years. So it's a bit different, but I'm mainly in an irrigated system that I look after, and that gives us a couple of opportunities to, I guess, promote growth when others can't. So that's a good thing, but sometimes we run out of water too, so we can't always use it. And I'd love to be able to, this is my desire in life, is to try and grow rice with less water. And that's a real challenge. And some of these regenerative practices can allow us to do that. So just to give you a heads up. You can see a few of these photos of the landscape, but it is pretty open. I've always tried to keep a cover on the ground, and you can probably see that through some of these photos.
Thanks, Russell. All right, what are we looking at here?
So that was actually taken yesterday, but it's basically a subclover back mix that's in naturally grown seed. It's a beautiful, I'd call it a beautiful loamy soil, reaching down into a bit of clay. Pretty lucky to have such a, you could almost eat it, and you can certainly smell it. It's fantastic. So
Hmm.
that gives you a bit of an idea.
Are you seeing that across a lot of the property?
Yeah, we
Response to
are.
moisture?
There's a little bit of variation when you develop irrigation. You tend to cut the soil or to scrape the soil off the top and deposit it in other areas, and where you don't renovate that soil again, that it becomes a bit bare and a bit harder, and it takes a bit of bringing back, that's for sure.
Hmm. So sometimes we can see germination. I always think of plants in terms of, especially ones you're not seeding, right? Of looking at what is this plant indicating? And often if we get that flush of a lot of our legumes, you know, and which is the opposite of what Donna was looking at, you know, what's happening in terms of a flush of nutrients and or biology. So with our legumes, we don't think of them as being necessarily biological indicators. They do change the population in the soil. So as we get more legume dominant, they feed a lot of fungi, but they're also releasing nitrogen, obviously. And that could be happening through your grazing or litter being laid down, but also they could be responding to a flush of sulfur. So when we get a rainfall event and you've got the biology in there that can actually release sulfur, we'll see this flush of legumes and nitrogen fixes. So sometimes, like Donna, thinking of your situation, what is happening with some of these nutrient cycles? So that looks like you've seeded in there.
Yeah, it's actually the seeding rows from the previous year. That's just the germination this year of the seed that was left over from the previous year.
Okay.
And the ground cover from the.
So when we say rows, so you've actually run an implement through the ground, and then what we're seeing is that the ground still isn't closed up.
Correct.
Yeah. So I think that can be a really powerful indicator too, thinking about biology. You know, biology are working all the time and they will very effectively smooth the surface off. So I've been on properties where they've ripped 10 years earlier and you're still going to break your leg when you walk across those pastures. That's a really key indicator that biology is not working as well as it could. I want to see that surface smooth off basically in relationship to gravity. So yeah, very telling. Can we see a soil profile, Courtney? Yeah. That went on, yep.
Sorry, I didn't do a
Oh,
good.
yeah. You just like us twisting sideways, all right? So we can see evidence of compaction, right? Those tight layers. What I like though is you can see that aggregation following down with the below that root. We can actually see there's some aggregate formation down there. Now that might be old roots that are dying, right? So we've got dead organic material actually feeding biology further down the profile. If you zoom in, Courtney, there's something interesting happening. So this might, it's sort of hard to tell if that is mealybug. What do you think, Russell? Is it mealybug or saprophytic fungi?
Yeah, I thought it might have been saprophytic fungi. There's a few areas where I've seen that whitening around, and maybe after looking at Donna's photos of the mealybug that you described, it's probably not the same, that's all.
Yeah, cool. Do you get fairy rings, the circles of dark green?
You
See
do.
them out in the field?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you do.
So it's super fun to do this. Is if you see those dark rings, dig through the ring, and what you'll find is it will be a thick mash of all those hyphae. So if you can visibly see fungi, it's because they've laid down mycelia upon mycelia to make it thick enough that we can see it with the naked eye. And those fairy rings will be dense. And I learned this from Dr. Mary Cole, who you guys have so many amazing people in Australia, but the microbiologist talking about that expansion and retreat of these mycorrhizal fungi that create, not mycorrhizal, the saprophytic ones that create those fairy rings, is that dark green growth is actually what your whole property should look like, right? We want to see that color release, and that's telling you that fungi are active and they're releasing a lot of phosphorus and nutrients. All right, do you want to look another profile? All right. hard to see a little bit, I guess, because the shovels kind of sheared
Yeah.
off that surface. How hard was it for you to dig? What's the
Quite
spading?
easy. That was one push with the foot, so that was quite easy.
Oh,
Yeah.
we like that. Yeah. You can see that pad in the middle. So that's like that larger block. Yeah. You can actually see a darkening, like there's some, oh, and actually, in the background against that face, those dark splotches are probably charcoal. Would I be right?
Yeah, I think it
Or is
is.
it more
I really do. I wondered that too, and that's why I took the photo, but I
Yeah.
wondered what they were.
Yeah. So not unusual to find that in Australia. Sometimes it may be, in the last couple, like 200 years, where we had people burning trees and removing trees from landscapes. Some of it too can be historical burning. So it's always kind of neat to think about the history when we see charcoal down through the profile. But yeah, the pad in the middle, there is a difference in the color. So I want to see more mixing. I want to see burrows. I want to know that there's kind of been life moving through
Yeah.
that soil. It's cool. Yeah. All right. What have we got here? Is it
Some
black
sort
beetle?
of, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, just thinking in terms of life cycle, right now we're probably not seeing grubs. No, I could be wrong. I'm on the other side of the planet right now. But yeah, most of your root feeding grubs would have flown. So we're going to see adults of your different root feeding grubs. So again, this is why digging through the season can be so helpful, is to look at what kind of pasture pests might I have in terms of these beetles. Again, eating a huge volume of root material. Some of you might have like clover root weevils, 14 of them in a shovel, which we've seen 21, I think is my record. In a shovel by a shovel will eat 2,200 kilos of dry matter per hectare per year. So again, keeping an eye on our insects. Was there something else that you would like us to look at, Russell?
There was one with a fair bit of whitening in it, and I can't see the photo. Sorry, Courtney, but it's there somewhere. Be up
Oh, I love the pH though.
Oh, the pH. Yeah, trying to do pH at depth. We did a bit of a look at that.
Yes.
And we did find a fair bit of variation from top to bottom. Increase.
Well, tell us what you found. So
yeah, the
this is
pH.
lower down, is it?
Yeah, this is a year ago, but the pH was increasing at depth. So I just thought, that's probably normal when you're using some of the chemical fertilizers. So just to understand, more mixing might help sometimes.
Yes. So that's lower down, and then was the other one higher on the profile?
Yeah,
So what would you call that? It was like 7.5?
Yeah, it was about 7.5, and up near the top we were getting up to 5, or down to 5, I should say. Yeah.
Yeah, so I would and this goes to, well, to everyone, is taking a deeper soil sample just to take a look. Oh yeah, that's different, huh?
Yeah.
So you can really see the chemical reaction with the pH
Yeah.
liquid, as you can see the color. So the other one was sort of a dark greeny purple color, and this is definitely yellow.
Yeah, it's pushing it quite acidic. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're saying the surface is more acidic, it's more alkaline at depth, but that alkalinity could also be sodic. So it could be that you've got sodium further down the profile.
Yeah.
Maybe.
It could be quite possible. I don't know that answer. Yeah.
Nice. So that's why I like to take like a 0 to 15 centimeter sample and then do a 15 to 30 and just send that away to the lab just to check.
Yeah.
Especially in dryland environments, it's like you could actually be sitting on just like a huge bank balance of calcium, or you could be sitting on something that's not so fabulous, which could be sodic, and I know especially in this region where you guys are all pretty close, is there are there Am I wrong in thinking that there is some sodic?
There is sodic soils around. I don't know if I'd classify this area as sodic, but there is some nearby.
Yeah. So again, doing your dispersive test or doing a flaking test could be interesting in terms of how that performs.
Yeah, we've done a real
one
basic
indicator.
in the field slaking test, and yeah, it holds together really well. So
Okay. Well, that's a good indicator then.
yeah.
Great.
Let's have a look at the regen dashboard. So you've done infiltration, legumes, and rhizosheath.
Yeah.
Tell us about the nodulation. If we want to look at the
Yeah, there's only this year we've only got some small nodules happening, but it might be it just hasn't developed enough through the season.
yeah, but you can see that from the outside, like they look pink, like you don't even need to.
Yeah.
Did you pinch them? They're pink inside.
Yeah, they are pink. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. So those of you that have not yet dug a hole to take a look at your legumes, take a look. Are they green? Are they white? Are they none? Are they pink? It tells you a lot, and this is what we've done in the dashboard, is actually give you more information in terms of being able to interpret that. Like, what does that actually mean? Which is why I like this tool, is that we can have it out in the field and be able to interpret stuff, and then also compare ourselves to others, which I have never met a competitive farmer. However, it's not like anyone's competitive at all. It's like, how good can we get these systems? Yeah. But that infiltration's great.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. It disappeared in front of my eyes pretty well, but it always has. It's never held water, even in the heaviest of rain events. It never lets water laying around or anything like that. So pretty lucky to have those soils.
Beautiful. And have we got a photo of those rhizo sheets?
I don't know. Have we, Courtney? We should have.
Yeah. So a little bit of development in there. I think we got some better photos from James's place. You see those bigger, that rhizo sheet development. So lovely. And the reason why we get excited about this is when we're thinking about resilience, those soils, that just that little zone is going to be cooler when it's really hot. It's going to be warmer when it's wet. It's going to buffer that pH by as much as 2 units. So if you do your little pH strip test, you could take some of this rhizo sheath material and grind it up and look at the pH of that compared to the material around it, and you'll find there's quite a big difference in pH. So even though that soil might be a 5, this rhizo sheath could actually be buffering and protecting that plant up to 2 units. So this is why, if you are seeding and putting in crops, is why we want to bioprime that seed, to make sure that that seed has a rhizo sheath the minute that it ends out in the soil. And yeah, it's quite funny. I just did an event in Nebraska. Thank you. And there was what do you have, 140 cropping guys there, and people would be like, oh, you can't get a rhizo sheath on this plant, and then someone else would be like, I've got a photograph of a rhizo sheath on that plant. So it was really funny just to have that diversity of people in the room to go, oh, actually it might be impossible for you, but here's how we are achieving it. Yeah, so we call free range chickens animals. They are doing things.
All right. Russell, do you have any last questions before we wrap up?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you very much. I'll might come back, Nicole, at some stage and ask you a couple more questions about trying to make our rice a little bit more resilient through a few techniques, but I can do that outside. Thank you.
I must say I don't really have any experience with rice. We've got
It's a
we've actually
plant.
got
It's the same.
it's a plant. But Courtney might be able to help you.
Yeah, Courtney's good.
Courtney's amazing.
Thank you so much, Russell. So we've got time for 25 minutes of questions. So I'm just relying on my colleague Talia to kind of send through some of the questions that have been put to us. But Nicole, feel free to jump in and answer a question that you really want to answer. But from Donna's presentation, we had a couple of questions around the mealybugs. Do you have suggestions to mitigate the damage of mealybugs? And what are they cleaning up when you say that they're cleaning up something?
Oh, they're cleaning up poor quality plants. So they're telling you that the environment's stressed. So if you look at the work, I guess they were doing with dieback and then blaming the mealybug or blaming crown rot, those things are secondary. So if you think about any infectious disease like sclerotinia or blackleg or all these things, is that, and people call them parasitic, but actually if you look at the mode of action, they are eating dead material. So basically something's happened to that plant to make it stressed. We see with mealybug is they really like low bricks, sort of low health plants. As we increase the brick, to what James demonstrated is just coming in and doing doing the biological that he did, is by lifting that bricks, we will reduce that pressure from mealybugs. So anything that's sap sucking, so thinking of aphids as well, is they're generally telling you that's pretty low quality. And then as we increase and move up through the amount of bricks, how well that plants are photosynthesizing, we can see different insects kind of kicking in. Yeah, so they're a cleanup crew. I think what you just call them, Sarah, deconstruction crew. They're coming in to clean up something that's not fit for living, unfortunately.
And in terms of mitigating that damage, do you have any first point of calls or?
Lift your bricks. So you got to figure out, and again, this is where doing your trials and digging holes is so important, is being able to figure it out for yourself is what's going to work well in this situation. And those trials don't need to be very big. Like we can just do 1 meter by 1 meter trials to figure out what's going to lift that plant photosynthesis the highest. That's hopefully going to be fairly cost effective. You could look at this in terms of grazing management, as the response is going to be a little slower, but actually doing trials with your grazing to look at, okay, adequate recovery, how much should I be taking off? How long should I leave it to rest? Is that impacting? You know, and we definitely see that monocultures play a huge role in these pest invasions. Is monocultures really alter that biological community and create the scene for more pests and diseases. And it's unfortunate because we end up almost like in a vicious cycle downwards, is as we get more monocultural, you're kind of putting a lot of microbes on starvation and that system starts to decline. So those of you who are really dealing, I think, Donna, you have a lot of phalaris, you know, it becomes moribund in some way. And that's where it's like, what can I interrupt this cycle with? What do I need to just kind of shake it up? And, you know, I think we have a lot of tools to do that. I'm not like dogmatic about my tools. I just think it all needs to consider life.
I have a question from James. Can you add salicylic acid in the tank with biology to avoid multiple parts?
Yeah, so salicylic acid could be considered is a plant hormone. It is not denatured with biology. Heat might denature it. I've just been finding some really cool stuff on melatonin, and then I found out you Australians are not allowed it. It's regulated. I'll send you some from America. But using melatonin actually as a bio priming on the seed to lift plant bricks and to overcome compaction as well. Which I thought was really interesting. So a lot of the times I'm like, what are the breakthroughs we're seeing with human health? And then how does that actually apply to our soil system, and thinking about soil almost like the human body.
Yeah, that's very cool. What were the examples of pre-probiotics for animals? I caught biochar. We have cows and pigs. Thank you, from Amy.
Thanks, Amy. Well, there's a bunch of like commercial ones, but when I think prebiotic, we generally would frame that as something that's not alive. It's just setting the scene for life in the gut. So a biochar or a humate would be considered prebiotics. when things like lactobacillus serum, which you can make yourself from milk, would be considered a probiotic, like it's got living biology in it. Cider vinegar might be considered a prebiotic, which, you know, it's kind of like just, you know, getting that gut ready. And then, yeah, you have loads of commercial probiotics for livestock. I like things I can make. So lactobacillus, you know, we can make that ourselves, which is quite fun. But yeah, I use humates for mine.
Thank you. To speed up getting rid of compaction, would you apply gypsum, deep rip cultivate, then apply biology or multi-species?
So what I recommend you do is read my book and then think about the 5 M's. What's causing the compaction? Right? Because if you don't address that, you could rip it, it's just going to close up. You could put a cover crop in and it's possibly going to fail. You could put biologicals down and they don't survive, right? There's so many tools. If you have very high magnesium, yeah, this is where we might use a little bit of gypsum. But again, I'm going to feed biology. Like I'm always thinking, okay, feeding biology through that system. We've done some pretty remarkable stuff in very, very high magnesium soils with small amounts of gypsum down the drill. And we've opened soils up in 6 weeks. So I kind of think if you can figure out what it is that's causing the problem, then we can really fast track it. Yeah.
Thank you. Addressing Phytophthora in the soil, do you have any strategies or thoughts?
Yes. So Phytophthora, for those of you not familiar with it, is a fungus that can cause root rot. Phytophthora is in nearly all of our soils anyway. You guys all have it. It's just telling you that it's some kind of imbalance. So I'd be looking at what's happening with water movement, especially those of you that have just been experiencing flooding. As we can see, they will form great conditions for Phytophthora to spread. And for those plants to be stressed, right? So this is where some of these products, like I do like EM or effective microorganisms for wet soil recovery. But again, I think for all of these things, like Phytophthora, so what you've got soil, it's black, everything dies. That doesn't sound very good, Molly. So these effective microorganisms they're facultative, means they live in aerobic or anaerobic conditions. And so we can see them kicking in when soils are maybe have less oxygen in them. And so thinking for those of you that are coming out of flooding, is how to open those soils up again, get that soil recovered as quickly as possible so we don't see kind of root rot disorders happening. There's a relationship with Phytophthora and mycorrhizal fungi, so having beneficial fungi in the system that'll actually help to protect plant roots. Some people are using biologicals that have a Pseudomonas species. I'm going to spell them because no. Pseudomonas, a trichoderma. So trichoderma will eat Phytophthora and also a mycorrhizal fungi as a combination to address, I'm trying to spell, if it's not spelled right, so mycorrhizal fungi, having this blend to actually protect those root surfaces to eat something like Phytophthora. But what's really cool about this mix is farmers are using it to create mycorrhizal relationships in non-mycorrhizal plants. So those of you that are growing canola or growing winter crops, kale, brassica, by actually putting this combination of organisms on, we're seeing mycorrhizal colonization. So I was like, wow, it's so cool. So yeah, seeing them be able to form that beneficial microbial relationship so we can really start building soil, right? Because my concern a lot with the brassicas is, yeah, we can open soil up, but are we really building it?
I have a question from James. Do you think you can amend cations with foliars rather than using mineralized products.
Oh, James, what do you mean by amend?
Feel free to jump on.
Yeah, sorry. So cation imbalance, like we're obviously putting out a lot of dolomite. Can you, I've sort of heard different arguments or different theories that you can do it all by using foliars in your soil. Is that correct? Or have I got that skew-if somehow?
So it depends what the foliar does. We've seen cation balances alter through the use of foliar because the plants and the microbiology and the earthworms and the dung beetles start bringing minerals from further down the profile, and we see a lot of soil mixing. And that was in a New Zealand context. I think they actually moved their soil really fast. But if you don't have this deep well of nutrients that's further down the profile, then I don't think foliars are really going to address your cation imbalance. And the reason you'd be using a foliar is just to support that plant, so the plant's healthy, so the plant can really start building some soil. And maybe if you've got a really good foliar nutritional program, it might happen, but in Australia I think it would take quite a long time. Yeah,
Cool. No, that's great. Thank you.
I think
Would you
again it comes down to when we think about cation imbalances, it's like I don't really care what the numbers is, what's happening in the soil and what's happening for that plant. So if you don't have a bunch of compaction and your plants are healthy, then I don't even worry about what's happening with the cations.
Okay, that makes sense.
Thank you. Do you want to have a go at Molly's dead soil? Is there anything that you suggest to bring it back? She bought some soil for a flower farm and not even weeds will grow in it or water won't soak in.
Yeah, I think in this instance, you want to get yourself a backhoe or a tractor and remove it. Because if it's black, it means they've cooked it. It's probably municipal compost. And if it's water repellent, it got really dry somewhere along the line and it's all bacteria. So this is why it's so important to actually look at material before it arrives. And I say that, and we built a garden last year and I had a friend who was like, I've got some great stuff. And she brought me some really nasty compost. We have managed to turn it around, but it's less than ideal. Like really, you don't want to start with something like that, especially if you're growing. This is for flowers, did you say? Yeah. But if weeds won't even grow in it. So can we fix stuff like that? Yes, I think you're better to go and get yourself some more compost.
Do
Sorry.
you, not what she wanted to hear. Do you have advice for how Donna could utilize the bark mulch that she has on her farm? She's got a lot of bark mulch.
Is it eucalypt, gum, mulch?
Yeah, it's a mix. It's just a local tree company that are, cleaning up trees, and we're going to use some around just tree plantations, but I thought, is there something that I can put on it to, rather than having to go through the big composting? It's probably, some is eucalypt. It's a real mix.
Yeah. I'd go back to this idea with the compost that's water repellent, is just making sure that it will absorb water, get it moist, and then see what fungi you can grow in it. So you can buy fungal spores, but maybe putting some, like a fish hydrolysate, a little bit of humic, some of these effective microorganisms, just to start really getting that stuff worked on. The more eucalypt or gum that you have, there's a lot of tannins, there's a lot of antimicrobials. Yeah, right, Jeff, that's helpful. If it's got a smell, if it still smells like a eucalyptus tree, then we want to help those materials break down before we use it. And then if it's all lovely and you've got fungi growing through it, then go nuts. I mean, I'd be putting that out on the ground directly.
Right, okay. What about like I do make the lab with the rice water and then add the milk? Would that putting some of that?
That'd be great.
Yeah.
but only a little bit, right? Even thinking about the fish, I'm talking like 1 cup per square meter, meter
Yeah.
cubed.
Yeah,
But you don't need a lot.
yeah, just to grow something in it. Thank you.
Thanks, Donna. From Lewis, curious about areas that have been spelled for a while, say a few years, but are still compacted or waterlogged, i.e. old horse yards holding paddocks for cattle. Is this just a symptom of inactive, overworked soils that are needing a biological kick in the guts to get working again?
Well, Lewis, it sounds like you're asking for a friend. It's you've got to figure out what potentially has gone on. I mean, I've seen sites like that, and we've found there's been a lot of animal drenches. There's been chemicals maybe used in there. There could be very, very high potassium in these soils. So you really want to get your diagnostic hat on and test it. You could find some really good quality compost and try putting that on the surface. But what we find is if there's something that's really creating a drag, is the compost can just sit there and it won't get incorporated at all. So I would, if you take a look in my book around the Cottonwood Ranch example, that soil system really needed a kick in the guts. And we did do that to turn that soil around. That was totally water repellent, wasn't growing anything. So yeah, there's options. You just got to figure out what caused the problem, right? And a soil test will let you know. I suspect you might have really high potassium in there. There's quite a few agronomists on this call. You're welcome to put some notes into the tab if you want to be like, I know you have blah blah. It's fine.
Thank you, Lewis. From Amy, we are predominantly native perennial pasture, kangaroo grass mainly. Have you ever seen this plant struggle when the soil profile changes, improves?
It's a good point, Amy. I'm not really based in Australia, so thinking about perennial kangaroo grass isn't really what I haven't had a lot of experience with it. However, I do know that some students that were on the last Create course with Courtney had this conversation around kangaroo grass. Can you remember what the outcome of that conversation was, Courtney?
Yeah, Josh was saying that it does seem to thrive in the less richer, the poorer areas of a farm is where you'll see kangaroo grass pop up. But it's still a valuable perennial in those areas. But I think his point was that when you do start to shift things, you might see the kangaroo grass be less dominant. Which for
And then
some
I'd be
people is
interested in what. Oh, sorry, Courtney.
well, I just was about to add that for some people that's a positive thing. They see better weight gains on their animals with other native species.
Yeah. So I'd be interested in what species, like our eye is trained for these systems that are so dysfunctional and unhealthy. Is what does it look like to have a healthy ecosystem? What are the plants that would be thriving? What species maybe which we haven't seen for a while start to come back? Anytime we have more monocultural plant species, what are they trying to tell you in terms of an imbalance in that soil system? So, again, putting on your diagnostic hats.
Thanks, Amy. How do we
Yeah,
manage?
growing on rock. Thanks, Jardine.
Yeah, that's my experience with kangaroo grass. From Christine from earlier, how do we manage compaction from animals on these soils? Do you find compaction the problem? Depending on the animal intensity, compaction can become a problem. So this was in relation to James's Soilmentor. Christine, if you're there, feel free to elaborate on that question. Maybe it's related to James and how you're managing your horses.
So we've just looked at using some temporary fencing to try and create more paddocks and rotate quicker. We're trying to shorter, sharper grazes and more recovery time. That's the aim. We're by no means doing it ideally, but that's what we're trying to achieve at the moment.
And are the same kind of recovery principles with grazing horses the same with cattle? Like, can you bring horses back into a pasture at the same, if the grass is the same growth stage, like phase 2, phase 3? Is that okay for horses?
I would assume so. I don't know if Nicole has any other. I just assume that in between phase 2 and phase 3 is the best time to graze, but Nicole might have some other ideas.
Our season here is so short. It's really interesting. We just gotta, yeah. I don't graze early, so I'm not bringing them in until we're at a 3-leaf stage. So my horses are actually on hay until then. So I want my pasture to kind of get a little bit more mature. I want them on the taller stuff because, yeah, otherwise they can get a little fat.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which might not be a problem if you're taking around a racetrack, but yeah, you can graze them like cattle, absolutely. And we used to run a horse breaking business, and we would graze them with the cattle, and there was no problems except chasing cows sometimes. But
Can I just ask, Nicole, with the increase in diversity and improving your bricks, do you think that could potentially have any issue on developing horses on higher sugars, or is it the fact that the plants are healthier, so you're not having those developmental disease issues?
I reckon you have a look at the Rocky Mountain Institute and some of the work they've done on structural and non-structural carbohydrates in terms of horse performance. And that's kind of what I subscribe to. So if the brix is really low, that's when you're going to see issues with sugars. So laminitis and founder and cushions and all that kind of issues is having these sort of, think of them as funny proteins and free sugars as opposed to more complex sugars, which is what we're wanting for good quality forage for all of us. As horses are not dairy cows, right? They don't have the system to break sugar down in the same way. So what we see is the high brick stuff that my horses do really well on it, even though it's higher in sugar. It's more around the complexity, the long chain sugars.
Yeah.
Not junk food.
Yeah.
Same as us, right?
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's cool. Thank you.
No worries.
Okay. I think we should, we've got one big question there. How do you increase the fungal biomass on pasture soils? Can you answer that in a minute?
No. So we've got 2 minutes. So I think I just want to say thanks to you guys, Donna, Russell, James, for letting us ruffle through your underpants drawer. The app is readily available. And one of the things I think is really cool is if you want to collaborate, or Soils for Life, you probably have some kind of initiative, but actually to collaborate, you can share users underneath the app. Like, you don't just have to get it for yourself. If you want to have it as a collaborative group, if you have any farmer hubs or peer-to-peer networks, you could actually sign up as the network, which is really cool. But yeah, we love it. It's made a big difference for our producers.
Thank you. Thank you, Nicole, and thank you, James, Russell, and Donna. Our Soilmentor initiative has wrapped up, but if you are interested in finding out more about how we've gone about with it, then yeah, feel free to reach out and we can be in touch. I will send out a survey after this webinar, so it'd be great to have your feedback on how you found this and also what you want to see more from in terms of Soils for Life. And I will also share some links relating to Soilmentor and Integrity Soils. Thank you so much.